In this video, I'd like to address some of the questions that I get about when someone should challenge a will. And so there's really two kind of different ways that a person can challenge a will, broadly speaking. So the first type of challenge for a will is really a challenge to the validity of the will. So in that type of challenge, someone is saying that there's actually something about the way that will was made that makes it invalid. Okay, and so that could mean anything from someone saying that the person who made the will didn't have the necessary mental capacity to make the will. It could mean that the person is saying the will maker was unduly influenced. Or it can mean even that the document itself doesn't actually qualify as a will. So all of those types of challenges are about the validity of the document itself. The other type of challenge is what we call will's variation. And so that is when either the spouse or child of the person who's died is unhappy with the amount that they're getting in the will, or maybe they're not in the will at all. And that's when they make an application to the court to ask the court to vary it, essentially on the basis that it's not a fair distribution. Now, that's not the technical legal test, but that's a good way of thinking about it, is that the spouse or child thinks really it's not equitable, it's not fair the way the will is currently drafted, and they ask the court to make changes to make it more fair. So those are the two kind of different ways you challenge a will, and they have different timelines for when you actually make that challenge. So with the validity of a will, so again, things about capacity, undue influence, the document itself, for that, it's best to make that challenge before the executor obtains a grant of probate. So every executor who applies for probate of a will has to provide all the beneficiaries and all the family members with 21 days notice before they actually make an application for probate. And so when a beneficiary or family member gets that notice, that is the time to initiate a challenge based on the validity of the document. And initiating the challenge up front is actually pretty simple. All you have to do is file one document in court called a notice of dispute. And in that, it's just a one-page document where you say why you're disputing the will, and then you file it. And then that actually prohibits the court registry from issuing a grant of probate until that notice of dispute is resolved. And so that step, like I said, should be taken as soon as possible after you know someone is applying to be an executor or an administrator of the will, after that person is applying for probate. So you want to do it as soon as you get that notice. The second type of claim, the second type of challenge is will's variation. Now that has a very, very strict deadline. And so a person has to make that application, an application to vary the will, within 180 days from the date that probate is granted. And that's, like I said, a very, very strict deadline. If you miss it by even one day, the court will say that you're out of time. And what can be tricky about that 180 days is the executor doesn't actually have to give everyone notice when probate is granted. They only have to give notice when they make their application, 21 days before. And a grant of probate itself can take anywhere from a few weeks to a couple months. And so if you want to challenge a will, if you want to vary a will, you're not going to have any formal notice of when the probate grant is issued. And so once you get the notice of the executor's intention to apply, you want to be very careful, and you want to make your application to vary as soon as possible, because the last thing you want to have happen is for that 180 days to expire without you having made the application to vary. So those are the two main types of challenges and the main timelines. So they are slightly different, but of course, as with any type of legal claim, once you know there's an issue, you should really make the challenge as soon as possible. So I hope that helps. I hope that clarifies some of the timelines. Subscribe below if you like this video, and I will see you next time.